Should be working. Okay, so we've been talking about the Renaissance, the Italian Renaissance. Today we're going to get into kind of what Italy looked like during the Italian Renaissance in the city-states. Remember, we talked about how politics at the time was changing. Power was now resting within states, individual states, not within a monarchy anymore. A monarchy being one person, right? A king, queen. And we're starting to see states pop up and power rest differently within those states. When you guys are doing your outlines that you're hopefully finishing up, you should have found a couple of those states. Milan was one of them, I think, and how they kind of looked during this time period. So that's where I'm going to go today, a little bit of Italian city-states chat. Italy did not develop a centralized monarchy like other countries in Europe. Since it did not have a strong main ruler, you saw a lot of city-states that were allowed to remain independent. They made their own rules. They had their own way of ruling. All right. Three of these states were Milan, Venice, and Florence. Milan, Venice, Florence. Those are the three states that you were supposed to define a little bit in your outlines. So those shouldn't be words or states that are kind of like foreign to you. All right. Milan was located in northern Italy. It was at the crossroads of some major trade routes. So being at the crossroads of major trade routes means that they were able to what? Make money, right? If you're trading and you're especially at a crossroads, that means a lot of different places are coming through your area. All right, so it's an opportunity to make a lot of money. 14th century, members of the Visconti family became the Dukes of Milan. So if you're underlining, I would underline that. The Visconti family were the Dukes of Milan. All right. They eventually controlled all of Lombardy. The last Visconti ruler died in 1447. And then we see a guy named Francesco Sforza. Francesco Sforza. All right. Sounds like a really good, canned spaghetti sauce, right? Like, I don't like canned spaghetti sauce, being I'm Italian. My mom, if she was still alive, would slap me for even bringing it up. But Sforza, sounds like, get when you're out at the store, get the Francesco Sforza, the garden variety with the chunks. That's his name. He conquers Milan and becomes Duke. So with this concept of different independent states, think about the United States, right? We have all individual states, correct? Yes, we know that. Shake your head, so I know you're good. Hey, there we go. All right. But we have one main federal government that is over all of those states. So let's say, Russia decides to attack New Jersey, right? Does New Jersey have to defend itself by itself? What do you think? Does New Jersey have to be like, oh, it's us against Russia? Anyone? No one? No, right? You're shaking your heads no. Why? Because we have a federal government that stands up. But in Italy, at this time period, Milan had who? Milan. If Milan couldn't protect itself, whoever wanted to conquer it, guess what they could do? Conquer it. All right? So not a real good setup as far as, holding and retaining power or being stable. But that's what happens. Sforza comes in, and the way that he does it is he hires a group of mercenaries. All right, mercenaries was one of your terms in the outline. Does anybody know what a mercenary is? I'll just call on you. Guys, make sure your cameras are up too, if you're on. Please, don't make me look at letters and weird memes and stuff. All right, I'd rather look at your weird foreheads. Does anybody, I got a smile out of somebody. There we go. She was laughing. All right. Does anybody know what the term mercenary is? Mercenary. Nobody? You were supposed to do an outline. Man, I'm going to have to start giving you quizzes. Mercenary. Nobody? I got a hand. I don't even know who that is. Just hit your mic. Natalia, go ahead.
It says soldiers who sold their services to the higher bidder.
Very good. So these were soldiers. These were trained soldiers, right? Think about this. These were trained soldiers that were very good at what they did, and they sold their services. All right? Mercenaries still exist in the world today. All right, foreign countries use them. Sometimes, there's been reports that the United States has used mercenaries in other countries. Now, our government would say that we don't do that because we have a strong army. But there have been times over the years where, we have hired soldiers from other countries to do our bidding. And that still happens in the world today. So Sforza hires a group of really good fighters, and they go in and they take over Milan. That's how they took over. It's not like Sforza walked in one day and just started fighting everybody. All right, he hired some really good people to do his bidding, and it ended up helping him, okay? So Visconti and the Sforza rulers helped to build a strong centralized state. They also, you would want to underline, created a tax system that gave their governments huge incomes. All right, so do we have taxes today in the United States? If you don't know that we do, ask your parents or grandparents or anybody who works that gets a paycheck. They'll tell you, yes, we have very high taxes in the United States. And it is the way the government makes money. The government does not set up like a lemonade stand on the corner and sell lemonade to make money. The government does not sell things to make money. They tax us, and that is the way that they have a working budget. That is the way they get money. All right, so are taxes a good thing? Sure. If you have any brain for economics, taxes aren't necessarily evil. They're not the worst thing in the world, right? But the government can sometimes take advantage of that. They can just, send out a new tax. The state of New Jersey is a very heavily taxed state. Again, ask your parents about that. And it operates in a deficit, which means it never has enough money. So they're taxing a lot, and they're spending more than what they tax, meaning they have no other way of earning money except doing what? Raising our taxes, right? And we see that started, or that we see that really taking hold in Italy at this time. This idea of, look, the government needs money. How do we make money? We can't sell, lemonade on the corner like a little kid. So we're going to tax the people. We'll provide services for the people, and we'll do that for a tax, right? Think about your roads. Think about trash being picked up. Think of just basic things that you don't have to worry about normally. Police forces, teachers, especially in the state of New Jersey and some other states that are reliant on taxes to pay them. State workers, they get that money to be able to pay for those things from taxes. So are taxes the evilest thing in the world? No. But are they a benefit in times? Yes, they are. It's when they get out of whack that you have to worry. But we see that taxes are generating in Italy at this time a huge income. Most would argue that's when they're a problem, when they're generating a huge income for the government and not necessarily only being used to provide a service for the people. Does that make sense? Taxes should be used to provide a service or services for the people, not be building this, massive income for the government. So then we move on to the next little city-state, Venice. Venice was a trade empire. All right, it traded with Asia and in Western Europe. Venice was officially a republic with an elected leader, underline this, called a doge, right? You might hear it referred to as a doge or a doji. Right? Doggy would not be how I would pronounce that, but you'll hear it referred to kind of differently from different people. So they looked a lot like what our country looks like today as far as how they have leaders, right? People call the United States a democracy, and we are because we vote, okay? But we are a democratic republic. A republic means that we have people that we have voted in that represent us, okay? So it doesn't mean that our vote is the end all. Like every decision that comes up, we vote. Should we have, pizza for lunch on Friday? Vote. That's not how this works. We elect somebody, that's the republic side of things, that then, the Democratic, we elect them, and then they represent us. That's the republic side of things. They then make the decisions for us. Their attitude would be what? Well, if you voted me in, you like my policies, you like what I stand for, I should be a good representative of you. Does that make sense? Right? Shake your heads, give me a thumbs up. Okay. So that's really like what our country looks like today. All right. We're a democratic republic. In reality, so here we see kind of this, what we see would be the Democratic Republic or the Republic in Italy, Venice. But what the reality of it is a small group of merchant aristocrats ran the government and promoted their own interests. So that's an interesting thing to kind of think about. We elect these leaders, right, in Italy, in the United States. Those leaders then raise money to continue running for offices, okay? Happens in our country. The presidents, or the people who run for president or senator, or even, your governors and mayors, they don't spend all of their own money out of their own pocket. Yeah, okay? So people give money to them for them to run. To run for office costs a lot of money, all right? So there's these groups of people that some would call special interest groups. Think about, like, have you ever heard of the tobacco industry, right? Cigarettes, cigars, that kind of stuff. Or even pro-life or pro-choice or pro-Second Amendment, meaning firearms, or anti-Second Amendment, against firearms. These are all what you would call special interest groups. They are groups that have an agenda, an idea of how they think our country should be run. The same thing was similar in Italy, all right? There were special interest groups that thought certain things should happen a certain way. And so they would give money to the ruler who was elected, right? The republic ruler that was elected. And then they would kind of say, hey, how about you kind of push forward what we like? Make sense? Right? So the ruler might say, all right, what's so bad in that? Let's say today if there's this big push to get rid of cigarettes, right? A lot of people still smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't, care if you do or don't. Don't care if your parents do or don't, but it's an issue that has been around for a long, long time. Tobacco use, right? It's a hot button issue. Every so often we see the issue come up where, well, we should raise the age of being able to buy cigarettes. Back in the day, I think it was like 15, 16 years old, right? When I was growing up, you could get cigarettes at 17, I think was the age. Now, I believe, we were talking about it the other day, cigarette products, I think you have to be 21, or tobacco products. I think you have to be 21 now to buy them. I might be wrong because, again, I don't smoke cigarettes, but I think it moved up to 21 with a valid ID. That happens because whenever some, politician wants to get reelected, he has probably had the tobacco industry in his ear saying, hey, can we loosen up these rules? Or, another group that's against tobacco saying, hey, can we raise that age limit a little more to protect our youth, right? And it sounds good and it looks good to certain groups and it gets them votes. So a politician needs what to be in office? Votes, right? I saw your mouth. They need votes. So they're going to appeal to and appease these special interest groups. So we see it starting way back then when people can get elected in Italy at the time in Venice. I want to appeal to my base. I want to appeal to these people who have helped me get into office. Kind of that you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back type of mentality, okay? So just understand that. Does it happen today? Absolutely. Is it always like nefarious or bad? No. It is what it is. Sometimes it can be bad. If you're in the pocket of the wrong group, let's say a foreign country has figured out a way to bribe one of the politicians in a situation, right? That could be bad because then is your leader that you voted for acting truly on the behalf of your people? They might be acting on the behalf of another country. That is where you can get a little dicey, all right? That can get a little dangerous because then you don't have the American people's, or in this case, the Italian people's ideas at the root of what you want to do. You might be appeasing something else. So do we see the positives and negatives of that, how that could happen, right? It can be both ways. It can be a good, kind of a good thing, and it can be kind of a bad thing when we start allowing these special interest groups to really dictate. Jumping on to Florence, next paragraph. Florence was located in Tuscany. During the 14th century, a group of merchants controlled the government. They led people into wars. All right, but then we see this name pop up, the Medici family. It's an important family, all right? The Medici family were what I like to refer to as like the beginnings of the mafia. Have you ever heard of the mafia? Anyone not hear of the mafia? Some of you might not have. They're not as big as they used to be. I'm going to open up this window. I'm getting a little warm in here. The mafia is, in the United States, we know the mafia. They're not as big anymore, but they were a group that basically came over and they started forming kind of like these families of crime. They would do things behind the scenes They would have a lot of power in their neighborhoods, right? Because people knew who they were. And they would get things. They would offer protection to local businesses. You pay me a fee, I'll protect your business. Nobody will rob from you. They would also get police to be on their side by paying them. So they would have a lot of power. They gained power, but they weren't out in front. They weren't sitting in government seats, right? They weren't top police officers. They weren't top senators, but they had power because behind closed doors. Did you ever see The Wizard of Oz? Anybody ever see The Wizard of Oz? Right? It's an old movie now, but it comes on every year, once a year, right? And the wizard was this big thing that, right? I have power. But then who was the wizard really? You pull back the curtain, and it was this guy kind of moving the levers, right? That was the real power, that he was behind the curtain moving the levers, okay? That's who the mafia was, and that's who this Medici family was in Italy. They were a family in Italy. You see Cosimo Medici, kind of from behind closed doors, they would be kind of whispering in the ear of the politicians. Hey, here's what we want. And the politicians kind of feared the Medici family. They knew they had power. They were bankers, all right? You'll see that in there. They had a lot of money at the time. They controlled a lot of power, a lot of money in Florence at the time. And so people were like, we might want to listen to these guys, all right? However, does everybody always listen to people? No. There was this other guy rolls around, and his name was Girolamo Savonarola. There's a mouthful for you, right? Girolamo Savonarola. This guy comes along. He's a preacher, and he starts really railing against the Medici family. Now, again, remember, the Medici family operate behind the curtain, behind closed doors. They don't want their name in your mouth. They don't want you talking about the Medici family. They don't want you out in public on the street corners. The Medici are bad. They're awful people. They're ruining Florence. They don't want any of that. They don't want attention brought to them because that diminishes their power. They operate in secrecy. They don't want people knowing kind of how much power they have. So the Medici were very smart. They went, okay, all right, Sav, you take the power. We're not really in charge. And they backed up. They went deeper into the closet, into the curtain. And they said, look, you do you, Sav. You have the power. Well, they knew they were very smart, right? These people were not dumb. Sav, being this intense preacher, he was going to eventually wear on the people of Florence. He was going to grate them down. You ever like nails on a chalkboard, right? Or eventually you're just like, oh gosh, would you just stop? We're done with you. It kind of happens in politics today. People get tired of hearing, I hear many people when they elect somebody new into office that's been, they go, I just want to change. I just want to change. I just needed something different. It's because, even something after a while that seems good starts to, and you just kind of, I need something. Well, Sav came up with all of these rules. Now, how many like rules? Anybody out there really love being told what to do all the time? Imagine being told what to do with almost every aspect of your life. Almost, right? Like you guys are getting a little older, you're 14, 15, you start to feel like I can make some decisions. Like my son, he's 14, he always wants to be the man now. Right? He always wants to tell dad what he knows. And so I'm like, all right, give it a shot, son. And I let him fall on his face a little bit to learn a little bit. But there are times when I'm like, no, that's not how you're going to do this because I know better. But imagine if, your parents, your whoever's in charge of you, or my boss even constantly, imagine if he was standing in the classroom right now going, that's not how I want you to give notes. You have to give notes this way. I don't want you sitting in your desk. You can't drink coffee. And eventually I would be like, get away from me. Or I'd quit. Like, that's it. I'm out. I can't deal with it anymore. If I was beating my son down every day with rules, eventually he would be like, I'm done. I can't wait to get away from you. Right? And I'm sure some of us feel that way. Even now, my dad wants to tell me how to live my life, and I'm 44. So in this situation, Sav puts rules on, you can underline this, gambling, horse racing, swearing, painting, music, and books. Now, I'm not telling you should go out and gamble. I'm not telling you should go out and, horse racing, another form of betting. I'm not telling you should walk around and curse every day. I'm not telling you, but these are all things that a lot of people kind of, they let loose. They do. How about painting or listening to music? Anybody like music, right? Anybody like listening to music? Anybody like singing? Anybody like, maybe you're an artist. A lot of, I've seen a lot of great artists come through Clayton. My sons like drawing, okay? Imagine being told you can't do any of those things. Whoa. So basically, I can't live life. I'm going to get in trouble if I mistakenly curse. I'm going to get in trouble if I place a little bet on something. I'm going to get in trouble if I paint. If I sing, read a book. So think about all these things. When you read, these kind of grow your spirit, grow your mind. And he's like, no, you can't do any of those things, right? He's like, do you ever see when a dog breaks the rules and you little on the nose, or you spray him with a bottle of water? That's what he's basically doing there. So people get tired of him, and they basically force the church to kill him. At that time, the church had the ability to assign a death sentence, and that he speaks out even against the Catholic Church. That's a no-no. At that time, you couldn't speak out against the church. You couldn't speak out against religion at that time, really. And the Cosimo or the Medicis look at the church and they're like, "You going to take care of this guy? You done dealing with this?" And they take him out. All right, he gets taken out, and guess who rises back into power? The Medici. They are waiting in the wings, and they go, "Hey, we're back." Right now, did they really ever relinquish power? No, there you go. I see that head shaking. Absolutely not. They never relinquished power. They were constantly behind the curtain, moving the levers, and just waiting for their moment to go, "See ya, we're back." All right, so that's this concept of operating behind the scenes, always retaining power. The Medici were very powerful, okay? Very powerful. So then we're dropping down to this last paragraph. Attracted by the riches of Italy, this is very interesting. The French King Charles VIII led an army into Italy. Remember, all these individual states, no real ruler. He occupied the kingdom of Naples in southern Italy, and then northern Italian states asked for Spanish help. So now we see the Italian states reaching out. They asked for the Spanish to come in. The Spanish sent soldiers, and for the next 30 years, think about this now, the French and the Spanish fought over Italy. That's going to matter, all right? In 1527, troops belonging to the Spanish king, Charles I, arrived in Rome. They had hired mercenaries. Again, we see that concept of mercenaries coming in. They attacked the city, destroyed churches, palaces. They also looted it, meaning took a lot of their money and the slaves and all that. And then they sacked Rome, which was the main capital there, and it ended the wars. It also made Spain a dominant force in Italy. Okay, so why is that important? Why should we care that Spain became a dominant force in Italy? It's not the biggest deal in the world, but I like to kind of point this out. Any of you take Spanish for your languages? Yeah? Does anybody know how to say welcome in Spanish? Nobody? Okay, well, welcome in Spanish. Did somebody try to say it? Chase, did you know how to say it? Welcome?
Hola is hello. Right?
That's hello, yes. But welcome in Spanish is venuti, benvenuti, right? I'm saying it like I'm Italian because I am Italian. In Italian, it's benvenuto, right? My last name, Venuto, benvenuto. The languages are very, very, very similar. So if you know how to speak Italian, you probably can converse to a certain extent with somebody who speaks Spanish. The reason that they're so similar is because the Spanish conquered Italy and were in Italy a very long time. Just a little tidbit, if you're ever on Jeopardy, there's an answer for you, all right? So why does Spanish and Italian language sound similar? It's because the Spanish conquered Italy and overtook it, and their languages kind of, married over the years. Does that make sense? All right, so that's the notes for today. All right, your job is to go back, highlight those notes, okay? Make sure that you get all the information that I talked about so you can watch the video again. Then you can